Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered how parents actually talk to their kids about race and racism? Today we're diving into a really interesting study that peeked behind the curtain of white families discussing these tough topics. This paper looked into something super important: how white parents and their kids discuss race. Many white parents admit they find it tricky, or even avoid these conversations altogether. They might not know what to say when their kids ask about race or racism. But what happens when they're given a helping hand, a kind of guide to navigate these waters? That is the big question this research tried to answer. Think about a kid asking their parents something like, "Some kids in my class said black kids aren't as smart as white kids. Is that true?" A lot of parents might just say, "Everyone's equal, don't worry about it," and then quickly change the subject. This study wanted to see what happens when parents don't change the subject when they actually try to engage. So how did they do this? They brought in white parent-child pairs, specifically kids aged 8 to 12. They showed these pairs animated videos of black and white children interacting. Some videos showed normal interactions, but others showed the white child being subtly or even overtly racist towards the black child. After each video, the parents and kids were asked specific questions to get them talking about what happened. It was like a guided conversation, a bit like role-playing, but with videos and questions to get them thinking. The special part was the prompts, the questions they asked. They weren't just, "What do you think?" They were designed to make them think about if the white child's behavior was wrong, how the black child might have felt, and even why the white child acted that way. They even defined terms like prejudice to make sure everyone was on the same page. This was all about scaffolding, or building support for these conversations. Now, what did they actually find? This is where it gets really interesting. When given this structure, most parents and children did talk about race. They used racial language and talked about things like prejudice. One of the main things they saw was color-conscious racial ideology. This is a fancy term for when people acknowledge race and talk about how racism happens. For example, a parent or child might point out that a white child's behavior was prejudiced or racist. They were able to identify when something was wrong because of race. And it wasn't just about blaming. Many Dyads showed empathy. When asked how the black child might feel, they'd say things like sad or upset. This showed they could put themselves in the other person's shoes, which is a huge part of understanding racism. But it wasn't all straightforward. Some parents and children steered away from talking about race. They might make excuses for the white child's behavior or say it was just a misunderstanding. This is called colorblind messaging, where the idea is that race shouldn't matter and therefore maybe racism isn't really happening. Interestingly, the study found that color-conscious messages were actually more common than colorblind ones in this guided setting. This suggests that when given the structure and prompts, white families were more likely to engage with the idea of racism rather than dismiss it. Another really important finding was that parents often led these conversations. They tended to give longer answers and ask questions, shaping how the child responded. This is key because it shows how much influence parents have in how their children understand race. The way a parent frames something can really impact the child's takeaway. The study also highlighted that in subtle racism scenarios, parents were more likely to give the white child the benefit of the doubt. This is a big deal because subtle racism, like making assumptions or excluding someone based on race, is super common today. If parents downplay these instances, kids might not learn to recognize them as racism. They also found a theme called external attributions. This is where parents or kids would blame something outside the white child for their racist behavior, like saying their parents taught them to be racist or they saw it on television. While understandable, this can sometimes take the focus off holding the individual accountable. So, what is the big takeaway here? This research strongly suggests that providing white parents with tools and a structured way to talk about race can make these conversations happen more naturally and openly. It shows that many parents want to talk about it, they just need the support. However, it is important to remember the limitations. This was in a lab setting, which might make people act a little differently than they would at home. Also, it was just one conversation. Racial socialization is an ongoing process, and most of the parents were mothers, so we don't know if fathers would approach it the same way. But even with these limitations, this study gives us a fantastic glimpse into how powerful guided conversations can be for white families. It shows that acknowledging race and racism and encouraging empathy can lead to more constructive discussions about these complex issues. It is not just about whether parents talk about race, but how they help their children make sense of it. This research is a big step in understanding how we can all become more aware and open about race. It reminds us that these conversations, even if they're not perfect, are crucial for shaping how kids understand the world and their place in it. What do you guys think about these findings? Have you had similar conversations with your families or kids? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science simplified. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.